Dear students, welcome to Introduction to Anthropology. Today we'll be discussing marriage. What marriage is and why it's necessary in modern time and how it is influenced by the rules of incest and exogamy, why people avoid getting married or avoid incest, and we'll be talking about endogamy. Let's see how anthropologists define what marriage is. So Royal Anthropological Institute in 1951 defined marriage as a union between a man and a woman, such that the children born to the women are recognized as legitimate offspring of both partners. Now, this definition doesn't hold true anymore because we know there's not only monogamous relationship, there are polygamy, polyandry, all of this sorts of marriages are existing. And there are cases where homosexual marriage exists. So in that case, it would be safer to say that marriage is union between two individuals or more than two individuals, which ensures the parentage and also legal rights of their children or the offsprings. It's also a means to ensure the economic and social reproduction as well as biological reproduction. What do I mean by that? I mean that it's not only reproduce children or the offspring, but also it reproduces social classes, and through marriages, we ensure the transaction of property and various rights, and it passed on to the next generation. People had sexual relationship or copulated without marriage, and that was okay at one point. But we see with the sedentary life, marriage becomes very important. Part of the reason marriage becomes important is that society started recognizing what is legitimate, what is illegitimate relationship. Incest is one of the ways to actually decide who is marriageable and who is not within the society, who you can marry or who you cannot. Incest refers to sexual relationship with immediate family members, but culture also defines the kin. That's why incest is also socially constructed. So you may marry your cousin in one culture, in another culture, they would be completely prohibited relationship or incestuous relationship. Marriage entails sex. So one can marry only someone who's with whom the sex is permitted. Besides kinship, other factors restrict sexual access, including age and range of sexual act that is tolerated within the society. Marriage is one of the primary ways of converting strangers into friends and creating and maintaining personal and political alliances. So we'll be talking about alliances very often, and by alliances, I mean that the bond that you have, social bond that you have and require for your survival or sustenance. Exogamy, the custom and practice of seeking mate outside one's group, has adaptive value. Because it links people into wider social network, and nurture helps and protect them in the time of need. So we see when we want to avoid incest, marriage is one of the ways. So exogamous marriage is one of the ways to avoid such incest. But why incest does exist? I mean, why does it even exist, the incest? Let's talk about it a little. Though it's seen that in cross-culturally, 87 societies has the proof that they have incest, but also how we define incest, right? A century ago, early anthropologists speculated that incest actually restrictions reflect an instinctive horror that we feel or might experience when we are having close sexual sex with our close relatives, because sex is a powerful emotion, and it often actually offset the balance within the family that you are living in, or the decent group that you are living in. And this incest is not something that was done overnight. People actually throughout the civilization, people realize that when you are having intimate relationship with your immediate family, there are genetic anomalies. There are people with Down syndrome or other special children are being born with special abilities and things like that. So that kind of made people going through the trial and error and figure out that incest is not working for the society. So this is something that happened over the period of time. Decline in survival and fertility does accompany brother and sister mating across several generations. So that was one of the reasons, is that it is actually shrinking the gene pool of the group, and it kind of make the group extinct. In most societies, people avoid incest by following rule of exogamy, which forced them to make and marry outside the kin group that we've just talked about. So exogamy has adaptive value. It not only leads to adaptive success, expand the gene pool, besides the socio-political function, exogamy also ensure the mixture of gene and maintain a successful species, but also it actually expands the social network. So you marry out, you have more social networks. So you have people who can actually call out when you are in need or in crisis. But after all this, endogamy still exists. There historically in Peru Mayan civilization or Egyptian civilization, endogamy or marrying within the group or marriage between brothers and sisters happened for political reason, though it was not legal for average citizen to marry their siblings or have the incestuous relationship. Part of the reason endogamy exists because a particular ethnic and religious group might want their children to marry within their group. One of the best examples would be the caste system among the Hindus. There are 4 castes, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And among this caste, these are initially they emerge as a specialized group. I mean, the service specialized group, and it changed over the period of time. And we see that it is seen, though caste system was abolished in 1940s, but we still see the impact. And in most of the cases, intercaste marriages are thought to be impairing the relationship or the sexual relationship between 2 individuals. Especially it is seen through the man's eye. It's a very patriarchal rule that exists. But apart from this historical endogamy or royal endogamy, there's one kind of endogamy that we often overlook, and that is class endogamy or homogamy. So your socioeconomic status automatically all of us internalize the socioeconomic status, and when we choose consciously or unconsciously, we are aware of the fact that what the desirable character, and this desirable character comes out of a particular habitus of a particular class. And we will talk about habitus that's when we'll talk about Bourdieu's work. But what is important to remember is that we do not necessarily go far off and marry either too rich or too poor person. We try to marry people who are like us, who have similar kind of social disposition. So whether we talk about exogamy or endogamy, it varies how what would be socially um, legitimate practice. It depends on the culture, and our culture defines what is permissible and what is not. So that's how the marriage is regulated. That's how the sexuality is regulated. We would end the first part of the lecture here, and we'll be talking about this more in our live class.